killer NHS waiting lists are killing over 250 patients a week, Poppy, who may have died for no reason other than simply being in a waiting, waiting time in A&E departments. What's your response to that, Poppy?
I mean, this is just absolutely disastrous. I think I read a stat earlier. It was 1 in 72 patients is at risk of an excess death. And the longer they're actually in the ward, the higher their possibility of dying actually becomes, which is absolutely the opposite of what you want to be hearing. You want to be thinking when you're in the A&E ward, you're going to be safer. But a friend of mine had to go into A&E recently and said it was just unbelievable. There's not enough staff around. There are people sitting out in the corridor. The waits are over 12 hours if you're lucky. I think it probably shows that we cannot just wait until the election to put off the crisis in the NHS. Funding is obviously an issue, but also this is a long consequence of the COVID lockdowns. We have a massive backlog of patients here who are actually going to A&E more than they would before because they can't get normal treatment. So they can't actually see a GP. So they're putting off getting seen by a doctor to the extent when they now need to use emergency services, which is massively adding to the pressure here. But this is crisis mode. I mean, the government needs to have an urgent intervention. They cannot just wait and go, Labour will be...
Poppy, what would that look like? And also, if Labour gets in, what on earth can Labour do about it? Because you say, actually, the funding is there. But when you look at it, we don't have enough beds, we don't have enough doctors. The whole system is actually falling apart.
Well, that's a difficult question. And I actually think Wes Streeting, who is the Labour Shadow Health Minister, has been pretty open about the problems the NHS is facing. He said that, look, it's not going to be when a Labour government gets in, everything's fixed up. But I will say, the funding issue is there. The funding issue is very real. There was another £6 billion that was given to the NHS during the budget. That is still not enough to fix the NHS. Perhaps should start some questions rolling in people's minds. Well, just how much is it going to cost to prop up the service? You know, we're an ageing country. We have a lot of people who are out of work and long-term sickness. It's increasingly difficult to sustain that in public funding. But we cannot have a situation where A&E is not working. I mean, this is just disastrous. But people cannot help but go to A&E. This is not just having a backlog with GPs. This is people who have got serious life-threatening illnesses who are dying because they cannot see an emergency doctor in time. Some kind of intervention needs to happen. And unfortunately, I can't give you an answer where that would be. And I would say that probably very few people in the country can.
I think very quickly, the most important thing here is the human cost, that people are actually dying because they are not being processed through A&E quickly enough. The 76% target to get 76 of people through in 4 hours.
Nowhere to put them.
There is a real issue here. There isn't enough money, even though we are putting a lot of money in. If you talk to the experts, we need an extra sort of 3.5% a year. Labour aren't offering that. Over the last hour or so, I've been looking at more detail at Labour's plan. It doesn't wildly excite me. They want 2 million more appointments, I think, in their first year. But one of the ways they want to fund this is through the scrapping of the non-dom tax breaks.
Which they've used for everything else.
But also the Tories have already done this now, haven't they? They've already promised this in their budget. So, look, I just hope that we are going to get a more competent Labour government. Are they going to have a magic money tree? No, they're not. But politically, headlines like this, long waits in A&E, kill 250 people every week in the Times, disastrous for Sunak because he's staked his reputation partly on driving waiting lists down and he is failing.